love Halloween. I mean, don't you? All the decorations, all the sweets, all the spooky things are on TV and spooky games that are out. It's just a great time all around. You can never beat Halloween. It's my favourite time of the year. Although I can't help but feel like I'm forgetting something right now. Like there's something that I always have. Oh well, either way I'm sure it'll come to me, so welcome to another Scarfulhu Halloween. So here we are again, another Scarfulhu Halloween and yet another Dracula video. This is going to be my fourth one actually. But you are only getting the one this year. Last year I did that Dracula double feature thing, but I don't want you guys to get too burnt out on the count. Or maybe you already are. I don't know what to tell you in that case. Regardless, this year I'm sticking to the series that I've already delved into with Dracula the Resurrection and Dracula 2 The Last Sanctuary. And if you want to catch up on those videos, they're probably up there somewhere in a card thing. Go check them out. And if you're already caught up, then well, let's just get stuck right into Dracula 3, The Path of the Dragon. Dracula 3 is a strange game in the series, in more ways than one. First of all, this sequel came out in 2008, 8 years after The Last Sanctuary, and it's not even developed or published by the same companies. Instead, the development reins were handed to the company Chaos to be published by Microids. Now, Chaos had significant experience in developing first-person adventure games prior to this, developing titles such as Return to Mysterious Island and Safecracker. Settle down everyone, form an orderly queue. Microids themselves are publishers of a whole bunch of niche adventure games. From the Siberia series to Agatha Christie's ABC murders, they've got a decent point-and-click catalogue under their belt. And that's one thing that hasn't changed in Dracula 3. It's still a good old point-and-click. And Path of the Dragon maintains the first-person adventure game style that I was fond of in the first two games, which is great. Although let's hope that one thing they leave behind is the horrifying 3D animations. That barmaid still makes me wake up in a cold sweat. Perhaps the strangest thing here is the promotion of the game. It was given away to blood donors by the American Red Cross. And you know, at first I thought this was a really strange marketing technique, but then it happened again earlier this month with the second series of Netflix's Castlevania, so what do I know? Either way, 8 years later and under an entirely different company, let's find out how they fared. It's worth noting before I begin that I'm playing the original version of Dracula 3 and not the 2014 port that you get for mobile devices and on Steam. This port of the game has mostly negative reviews on Steam, and for good reason. I'm actually one of those negative reviews now. It basically destroys everything that I like about this game. Plus, I took one look at the main menu. Just see for yourself. No. Just no. I mean, what is this? It looks like the main menu of a crappy Unity horror game with obnoxious jump scares. Ugh. Now compare that to the main menu of the original. It's classy. I mean, the stone pillars, the music, it's all weirdly cozy. Though that music does not sound like it belongs in a Dracula game at all. It honestly sounds more like the theme of a quirky European detective. You know, it wouldn't be completely out of place as the theme of Poirot, for example. It'll become increasingly more obvious as this review goes on that this is a very odd game. But we'll get to that later, because first of all, let's talk about the plot, because oh boy does this game have one. Dracula 3 marks a departure from the original novel's characters entirely, and instead works with its own cast. And our protagonist here is a priest called Father Arno Moriani, as he'll be very keen to tell you himself.
I'm Father Arno Moriani. Father Arno Moriani. Father Arno Moriani.
Father Moriani has been having nightmares about being trapped in a box. He's even been looking in the Bible to try and understand these dreams. Or maybe he just subconsciously wants to be a mime. You never know. His boss, Monsignor Briganti, isn't too concerned about this and even calls Arno out for being superstitious.
Arno, you use the Bible to interpret your dreams. Please, don't sink to superstition.
Yeah, why would you seek guidance from your religion, idiot? He gets sent from the Vatican to investigate the death of a woman named Martha Calagaral, a noticeably disfigured doctor working at a clinic in the small Romanian village of Vladiviste. And where is Vladiviste? I'm sure you can guess that it's in Transylvania. The Catholic Church is curious about making Martha into a saint, but they need to know a little bit more about the circumstances surrounding her and how she died before they go through with it. and dear old Arno is sent as the investigator for this task, and he takes a train to WhaddupNico. And boy does this guy have a journey ahead of him, and I'm not just talking about the train. So that's pretty much our objective to begin with. Nothing to do with vampires, just investigating a death in a quaint little village. And I call it quaint. Really, it's quite eerie. It's just boom, instant atmosphere. And this atmosphere in particular is fantastic, with partially destroyed buildings from a war and a thick layer of unworldly fog coating the area. We even have this silhouette of a barking dog. Yes, I am impressed by that, but come on, did you see the first two games? Dracula 3, on the other hand, is just really good at putting you immediately on edge, even though there's seemingly no actual danger to begin with. It's just a spooky place to be around, and you get the sense that there's something off about the area. Could it be horrifying swamp creatures, ancient cursed mummies, or even oddly hunky werewolves? Is this supposed to be a dog toy that I found? What kind of toy? There are even places where Arno is scared, and as a result, his heart audibly beats more quickly with noticeable view bob and breathing. I mean, come on Arno, it's just a gate, it's not that scary. But now that I think about it, if you're scared of a gate, maybe there's something actually there waiting to strike. I don't like that. Knowing nothing about the game, that was creepy. I had no idea if there was anything truly there, and I was drawn right into the world. It's so good at that here. You're also encouraged to have a little wander around and meet the quirky residents of WhaddupNico. These include an innkeeper called Ozana, a slightly creepy history buff called Janos Peckmester, a young boy called Jonel, a gravekeeper who looks more like an Oblivion character than anything else, and Maria Florescu, the fresh-faced new doctor at the clinic following the death of Martha. One thing I should mention is that all the characters look better in this game. I know there's been an 8-year gap, so that's to be expected, but still, I wanted to mention it. The general presentation is much neater and pleasant to look at across the board, honestly. That's both graphically and for the gameplay. Let me break this down a bit. First of all, we have the inventory system, which is absurdly well put together. You have all your documents and previous dialogues in place just to cross-reference for puzzles. And trust me, this game really does want you to cross-reference for puzzles. You've also got your objectives written down to guide you along, and a full copy of the Bible in Latin. And yeah, it's the full Bible in Latin. It actually acts as the game's hint system. It's a really interesting and unique way of doing it. When the Bible button is flashing, you can click on it and you'll be taken to an underlined and translated verse in the Bible that foreshadows an upcoming event in the story, or perhaps just gives you a clue as to where to go next. And I've not seen a lot like that, honestly. And it's not just the Bible that does this, there are a whole bunch of historical documents to go over, and even a copy of the original Dracula novel. Yeah, just the whole thing, there to read whenever you want. And the level of polish applied in the gameplay is really impressive. Forget Dracula 1 and 2. This is way above and beyond any adventure game I've ever seen prior. I mean, I've seen similar document systems in place for other games like Gabriel Knight 2, but this is next level stuff. And I love it. And graphically, while the characters are a little bit plasticky, the environments are full to the brim with atmosphere. I know I keep using that word, but it's such a big aspect of the game. But yeah, the character models definitely aren't perfect, especially for 2008. But they're not nightmare fuel either. That's a win in my book. And on top of that, Jonel is less of a young boy and more of a small man. In fact, he kind of resembles Report of the Week, you know, that guy on YouTube who does food reviews.
My disappointment is immeasurable, and my day is ruined.
And then there's just little things I enjoy, like being able to see yourself moving in a mirror, and being able to magnify parts of documents. The mirror's definitely the best part though. There's just so many little details to appreciate here, and it's such a huge step up from Resurrection and the Last Sanctuary. After exploring and sleuthing around a little bit, Arno finds himself being watched by a mysterious figure in a window, in a shot very reminiscent of the Alone in the Dark hand in the window shots. I'm assuming this is meant to be good old Vlad the Impaler. Especially with those ring tastes. That man knows how to accessorize. The next day has you doing more of what was going on in the first, but this time we also meet a strange fellow by the name of Stefan Luca, a journalist who tells of vampires and a ritual called the Path of the Dragon.
Yes, I didn't introduce myself. Stefan Luca, journalist.
Side note, Stefan Luca's facial hair is amazing. He tells of his friendship with the late Martha and how she attempted to undertake a vampiric ritual path after discovering that many of her patients have been dying through blood loss. And if you're curious, yes, this is the Path of the Dragon. Of course, Arno doesn't believe in vampires. What a ridiculous notion. The Catholic Church doesn't believe in vampires. And that actually becomes your mission for a while, to disprove the existence of vampires. Monsignor Briganti actually tells you to do this personally through a phone call with the backing of 2 experts. One in history and one in science. But not before Maria asks Arno for some help in the lab, engaging in a strangely long puzzle involving drawing some blood and analysing the results, including identifying blood type. It's certainly an interesting sequence gameplay-wise, but it all feels a little bit, Elsa iPad game, if you catch my drift.
And why am I doing this exactly?
I get that it's a vampire game and vampires do love blood, but it still feels weirdly clinical. And I mean, I know that I'm in a clinic and all, but it's hard to put into words. Anyway, once Maria thanks us for our work, we get the opportunity to talk to Janos Peckmester at the ruins.
These ruins are impressive, aren't they?
They sure are, Janos.
Before the war.
Janos is a very odd character. He's very shady and he loves Vlad the Impaler a little bit too much.
I think he's the greatest prince Transylvania ever had.
One thing's for sure, I definitely don't trust this guy. I caught him playing with skulls one time, and he still just comments on the ruins.
These ruins are impressive.
At this point in the game, I started to catch on to something. While there are some spooky things in it, this isn't really much of a horror game. Nope, Path of the Dragon is actually closer to a historical mystery with supernatural elements than anything else. This all comes into focus when we are told to travel to Budapest, and whilst on the train over there, Arno dreams of Maria.
Ooh, someone's got a crush.
While in Budapest, we intend to meet Professor Irina Boxoff, a historian, hoping to dispel this vampire silliness. Only, she believes in them too. She also forces us to do a couple of word searches, and I call them word searches, but they're actually supposed to be prophecies. Yeah. It ends up being a puzzle that requires you to have intimate knowledge of the start of World War I.
And I mean, I don't have that knowledge.
I could tell you the basics. Archduke Franz Ferdinand assassinated in 1914. That bit's easy. But I couldn't tell you where it happened. Sarajevo, apparently. I hadn't even heard of that place until I played this game.
We're learning history on Scarfulhu today.
This is one part of the game I had to look up what to even look for in these little word search things. It doesn't give you a lot to go on. So how is anyone supposed to figure this out if they don't already know? And why a word search war prophecy exactly? That just seems like a weird choice.
There's also a World War II prophecy, which is pretty chilling when you consider that this game's set in 1920. I wonder if that'll come up later.
Back at the village, we pump the residents for more information, which leads me to my next point. A lot of this game is very slow paced, which is fine, because we do have a number of spooky things keeping Arno on his priestly toes. One of these things is this.
Yeah, I admit it, I totally jumped out my skin.
You see, the game does this thing where it automatically points you at specific things sometimes, and when this is done with a jump scare, it's really unsettling and a little bit mean. But nonetheless, kinda love it. Anyway, we still need the professional opinion of a scientist to disprove vampires, but luckily we did have a run-in with an angry German fellow earlier. Angry German fellows hate vampires. And this angry German fellow happens to have been in a few pictures with Martha, so surely we can ask him for a bit of help over the phone. I'd like to add that phoning people in this game is actually pretty neat, because for certain important characters it opens up a little glimpse into them talking on the other line.
It's just a neat little effect. It's not necessary, but a lesser game might not have bothered, but Path of the Dragon goes above and beyond to add the extra layer of polish.
But I digress. This German dude is called Kruger, and I don't want to say that he's a Nazi. I mean, this game is set in 1920, but I mean, this guy really wouldn't be out of place as an Indiana Jones villain. He just has an evil fascist vibe about him. I can't shake it. And I'll be honest, my favourite part about this guy is when Bram Stoker's famous novel is brought up to him, cause Kruger just goes full on critic, poking at the plot holes in the book. I'm not even joking.
Stoker affirms that those who die as victims of a vampire should become one in turn. So at that rate, vampirism should spread like an epidemic. So Stoker's hypothesis is therefore perfectly absurd. No species can live without regulation.
You should see his Last Jedi review.
So you see, this is my main problem with this movie. Why would Holdo not tell Poe her plan? It just doesn't make any sense. And don't get me started on Luke. Like and subscribe bitte.
We also have a bit of a disagreement with Stefan Luca because he wants to get right into vampire hunting, but Arno is skeptical. And Luca just decides to move on without your help, which is why it's very strange when the next day it seems he hasn't even left his room. In fact, during the night, you actually hear a gunshot in a cutscene.
And that can only mean one thing. Murder.
Good God.
And murder she wrote. Whoever wrote this game.
Benoit Hosgen.
Stefan's medal.
I can't pronounce that, sorry.
After investigating Stefan's room as well, the music changes to this interesting investigation music. Can I just say that the music for this game is just fantastic in general? I mean, there's such a range. There's creepy and weird, but also mysterious and pensive. And then there's a sort of whimsical European feel to some of it, as you may remember from the main menu. Whoever was in charge of deciding the direction of this game's soundtrack is, quite frankly, a genius. It's not what you'd expect from a Dracula game at all, it's very different, but it works.
And I love different and unexpected. I don't care what anyone says.
Further clues from the late Stefan's luggage and notes given to us by Maria lead us to travel to a snowy mountain called Fox Peak. This is probably one of the creepier parts of the game, honestly. The game really endeavours to put you on edge and mess with you here, and I love it for that. Essentially, you climb down to an ancient prison embedded in a wall, and you are forced to crawl through a narrow tunnel. Sounds fine in principle, but just watch.
God, it's so unsettling. I love it.
You don't find too much worthwhile on the other side right away, so you head back and oh good, the rope is gone. Okay, so now we have to find a way out through the prison. And what does this involve? Well, I won't get into it too much exactly, but you gotta dig by drawing a pentagram. Just a kind of demonic Bob Ross thing, you know, happy little pentagram in the Satan dirt, that sort of thing.
Oh, and prepare yourself, because there is a jump scare here, and I'm about to show you it.
This one got me real good because, I mean, come on, you're concentrating and looking closely. It's totally out of the blue. I mean, sure, it's cheap and pretty dumb how Arno gets jump scared by digging up some old stone face, but still. There really aren't many scares in this game total, which is why when they do come, they're quite surprising. They sort of play with lead up to scares, which makes them feel a bit more organic and less like a theme park house of horrors, you know?
It makes you feel like something could jump out at you at any time, but most things don't at all.
I mean, look at the gameplay from a moment in the game where I saw a creepy bat hanging in the window. I just immediately noped out of the room in fear of some kind of scare or death scene. And it was just a bat, but I don't like things jumping out at me.
Don't judge me. Could have been Dracula.
Anyway, with everything going on in a little montage, Arno finally flips to the side of believing in vampires, which sets off his motivation for the last half of the game.
And my opinion on the last half of the game? Not quite as good.
After more character death, there are even attempts on your own life, with a bomb. And this was the point where things kinda started to fall apart for me. Yes, it's amusing for a mild-mannered priest to suddenly be carrying around a diffused bomb with him, but the game over screen is just a laugh over a little skull animation.
Well, at least you're having fun.
That said, it's definitely a step up from Dracula 2's whatever this was.
But a skull can't be funny. After all, there's no humorous. Join me for my first comedy tour, guys. It's called Funny Bones. It's exclusively skeleton puns, and this guy's going to be a part of it.
I haven't really talked too extensively about the puzzles yet either. They are bonkers. And not in a moon logic inventory puzzle way. I mean, they are brutally difficult logic puzzles. And they are logic puzzles. Properly logical. You just need to really be focused and taking notes. It sure is satisfying though to crack a code using nothing but a pen, paper and your sharp wit.
Not many people can say that, except for the people who did it for real.
And in a shocking twist, we discover that Janos Peckmester, who we discovered in a coffin recently, is actually a Nazi with Kruger the Critic.
I mean, Kruger, fair enough. That guy just has a Nazi aura about him, but Janos, and I thought he was such a good boy.
But then again, a lot of the other puzzles just make your eyes glaze over. You ever wanted to figure out the ratio of simple and polynuclear granulocytes in a spooky Dracula game? Because we got it right here. Who is this even aimed at? I mean, if you're the right blend of horror, history, maths and science nerd, then you're pretty much the target audience.
Hey, I mean, if you're out there, you should rock up to the American Red Cross and get it for free. They're probably not still doing it, to be honest with you.
Eventually you find yourself beneath the ruins of Vladiviste.
These ruins are impressive, aren't they?
Yes, those ruins. Where we aim to complete the Path of the Dragon and find Dracula, I suppose.
I mean, you know, that's actually a fair point. Where is Dracula? Has anyone seen him? Ancestor Prince of Darkness?
We have a whole bunch of vampire killing kit now anyway, so we're ready to kill Dracula. I mean, if he even exists in this game. Did we miss the memo? And who do we find in Dracula's dungeons but...
Janos.
Apparently he wants to go down the Path of the Dragon as well, but we push him up against a spike wall.
Kill him! Kill him! Kill him!
Janos, we can refuse to participate in this monstrous game.
Aww.
Oh, great. Arno's some kind of non-violent priest? How many of those exist? A few more trials and tribulations eventually take us to the coffin of Dracula himself, where we hear...
Hey, Father Arno, it's Professor Kruger.
Is that Kruger calling to us?
Kill Dracula or trust Nazi? We live in a world of hard choices.
If for some insane reason you do trust Kruger, I mean, I don't know, maybe you don't like the Dracula novel either, then he just shoots you.
Well, you know, he is a Nazi. What did you expect?
But using our anti-vamp paraphernalia, we turn Dracula's foggy corpse into a California raisin, which then disappears. Apparently it was an illusion. And now our weapons are gone. And then Maria rocks up to us. And you may be thinking, Maria? What's she doing down here? Isn't she the doctor lady? Yeah, I forgot to mention she gets kidnapped at one point.
I would have mentioned it, but whatever. Either way, here's your spoiler warning for the rest of the game. Beyond this point, we're going to be discussing the big twists. So, yeah.
She basically just turns up and explains that she was Martha Caligari all along. You know, the doctor who we thought was good and saintly, and also dead. The one who is Arno's main reason for being here in the first place? Yeah, instead of dying, she was seduced by the dark side and reborn as a vampire, or something like a vampire, and her disfigured face was healed through this process. Now, this is actually foreshadowed earlier on in the game, but it's a pretty unsatisfying twist nonetheless. She never once seemed like she was being evil or manipulative or being controlled, and from what we know of the character, she just wouldn't give up her saintliness to be young and pretty again.
That just doesn't work.
It flies in the face of everything the game set up in the intro. It's not an earned twist at all. She doesn't even look like a vampire, she looks like a regular human. But we do learn a few things, because Maria/Martha at this point is basically just an exposition vending machine. Put in a coin, get a cop-out explanation for the game's mysteries.
So, who killed Stefan?
Janos.
Janos. And who kidnapped Maria?
Janos.
Janos. And who planted the bomb?
Janos.
Bloody Janos.
So really, the biggest villains in this game are just a couple of Nazis. I say just a couple of Nazis, I mean, Nazis are sufficiently evil enough, but they're not Dracula. And are we not here for Dracula? This game is called Dracula 3, so you may be wondering, does Dracula actually turn up in this Dracula game?
Yes, he does. Unfortunately.
I say unfortunately because, let me explain. So after Maria leaves, Dracula makes a grand entrance and waltzes up to you. And to lift a phrase from a GOG review, he looks more like a Chicago thug than the Prince of Darkness.
I mean, I can't really say that I disagree with that sentiment. I mean, that's Dracula there, that guy, fruit punch mouth, needs a napkin.
He also asks a few strange questions, one of them being,
Let us talk of our little Maria. She is beautiful. You desire her, do you not?
Bleh, I'm Dracula, but also, do you think that Maria's cute? I mean, I'm onto you, Arno, you sly old dog.
Getting the wrong answers to Dracula's questions means he incinerates Arno, because that's what Dracula does now apparently. But if you get them right, Arno decides to use the bomb from earlier to blow him up.
How dare you?
So, we either burn or burn.
Yeah, all of that, and Arno still dies. Pointlessly, of course, because Dracula never stays dead. And there are 2 more sequels.
Couldn't I have just bombed the Nazis instead? That would have been so much better.
The ending basically then shows the Nazis taking Dracula's power in World War II, Janos being interrogated by a military officer, and yeah, that's about it. Janos doesn't even sound like Janos anymore.
You don't believe in vampires, Captain? If you had seen what I have seen, you would know that I am in deadly earnest.
Janos?
Does the name Vlad Tepes mean anything to you?
These ruins are impressive, aren't they?
And I didn't even realise that was Janos until I read more about the game online.
It's just bizarre. This ending cutscene sounds like it belongs to an entirely different game. The animation feels like it was done by a different studio as well. It could almost be the intro cutscene to another game entirely. But it isn't. Dracula 4 and 5 don't use this plotline at all. They don't continue it. And then it just ends. Yeah.
Okay, let's try to make sense of this game as a whole. I have a lot of complex feelings here.
Dracula 3 Path of the Dragon is a game that has me really ambivalent. Parts of it are so good and up there with the finest of adventure games. Other parts fall really flat and don't gel properly with the rest of the game. I think it may have been a victim of its own ambition really. With the abrupt ending and the World War II setup, it feels like there should have been more, like they just ran out of time. It feels like part 1 of a larger story that never gets told. And it is a large story already. My playthrough was nearly 9.5 hours, which is pretty hefty for a point and click really. And none of that feels wasted either. It's decently well paced, especially in the first half. And I'll never forget the atmosphere of the first part either.
It managed to do something properly special there.
Unfortunately, Dracula 3 stopped scaring me once I realised that death was kind of meaningless and a bit silly, but the heartbeat sounds and all the creepy little events that happened was so effective on my first playthrough. I don't think they'd be nearly as effective if I played the game now, which is a shame, but they're still there in the first place. The story itself is rather huge, bombastic, and ambitious. I mean, it's a historical mystery set in 1920 that includes Dracula, early Nazis, and prophecies of both world wars.
It's completely off the rails plot-wise, but I love that it tried to do something original.
But it's just a little bit too much for one game to handle, and by the time Maria turns up and splurges exposition all over Arno, it just feels like everything good about this game kind of fizzles a bit.
A bit like the end of a bottle of Coke going flat in the fridge.
I'll be honest, this is actually one of the most difficult videos I've ever had to write. There's so much to like about this game, but so much to dislike as well. There's bound to be a lot that I've left out, but my feelings are so complex here that I didn't want to make this an hour-long video. It's already long enough as is. Don't get me wrong, I think this game is probably the best in the series by a country mile, but because it's so good in the first half, my standards were so much higher in the second half. And I can't help but be significantly more disappointed with the game than I was with 1 and 2. At least with those games, I didn't get my hopes up and I just had a laugh, if that makes sense. In the end, can I recommend Dracula 3? I'm not sure. I think it's worth it if you're a history fan or if you love brutally difficult logic puzzles, but if you're after a complete coherent horror story, then I'm afraid you shouldn't get your hopes up here. Or if you even want a Dracula game, this isn't one. Not really. Dracula is tacked on at the end with little thought.
Or even if you just want a cheesy Halloween game to play for October. This game doesn't hit the mark there either. But that's Dracula 3, The Path of the Dragon. A game with so much going on that I'm not even really sure if I like it or not. And what could be scarier than that? Happy Halloween. And you know, I still just can't shake the feeling that I'm missing something.
You have forgotten me, and you will pay for that. Blah!
Oh my god, yeah, the witch hat from my other Halloween videos. How can I forget that? And now it's turned evil and it's gonna kill me. That's really gimmicky.
You're gimmicky, now die!
Oh, here we go.